Hello there. My name is John Ryland. I'm the Director of the Christian Healing Mission. And welcome to this month's session in our Opening Heaven's Door training program. Now, last month and this month actually, we're breaking into our usual routine because what we're normally doing is offering training in kind of face-to-face ministry. Well, we've had to put that on hold for a moment because it seems a bit pointless. We can't even meet together, let alone pray with people face to face like that. So last month, I was talking about our whole approach to ministry, which is encounter prayer. I was talking about how we can use that for ourselves and as a form of intercession for other people. This month, I want to talk about something that we touched upon in the past, but it's actually equally important. And it's that whole subject of listening to people, connecting with people. Because we might not be able to pray with people face to face, but I think in this time we can still connect with people, either on the phone or through the internet or through other means. That connection can still be there. And what I want to suggest really is this whole idea of connecting or listening to people is one of the most important ways we can actually help people in these times. Now, you might think, well, that's an odd thing to say because surely the best thing we can do is to actually pray for them. But actually I wonder if listening or connecting is actually every bit as important. I know there have been times in my life when I've been, leading up to minister with somebody and they've been talking so much. I've longed for them to be quiet so we get on to what I felt was the real work, which was actually praying for them. But I wonder how fair that really is. I think, you see, in our ministry, what we are longing to proclaim is the work of Christ the healer. And we probably see that as quite a neglected part of the church's ministry. But I wonder, in our pursuit of Christ the healer, are we neglecting the ministry of Christ the listener? And actually, maybe this whole ministry of listening is not separate from the healing ministry of Christ at all, but very much a part and parcel of it. What do we mean by that? If you read through the gospel stories, there's very little evidence that Jesus sat down with people and sat with them and listened to them for hours and hours on end. But I wonder then if that means we ought to really look at our own definition of listening. Is listening just about us being quiet whilst another person speaks? Because if it does, that doesn't really summarize the ministry of Jesus. But if listening is actually about connecting with people, that is something in which Jesus really did engage. And I'd say that actually without that connecting with people, there wouldn't really have been so much healing ministry. Let's think about this. When we talk about healing, I think what we're talking about at its most basic level really is the touch of God that brings change and transformation to normally a person, or it could be a situation. Now, we can argue about whether that means God uses other people in that process, whether he uses medical involvement, or whether he uses other sort of natural means to bring about his purposes. But you see, if it's just the case that God, if you like, zaps out a thunderbolt from heaven to touch people on earth, well then, why did Jesus need to come at all? Take any of the stories, Bartimaeus, for example. Presumably God saw the suffering of blind Bartimaeus as he sat on that roadside begging, and he'd done for many, many days. Why didn't God just, send a power bolt and heal him? The result would presumably have been quite the same, and Bartimaeus would have thought, well, how wonderful God is to do that. Well, the answer is, because I don't really know why God didn't do it that way, but he didn't. He brought that healing through the ministry of Jesus. And you see, I think actually Bartimaeus' healing began not just when Jesus passed by that roadside and saw him, but before that. You know, his healing began when God saw the suffering in this world, and when he gave Jesus out of his love for the world, and when Jesus willingly came because of his love for us. He came to be amongst us. Jesus experienced the suffering of this world. He was tempted in every way just as we are. He literally connected with the sick through speaking with them, through touching them, through actually being with him. And so this ministry of Christ, the healer, is so intertwined with the ministry of Christ, if you like, the connector. He sought to connect with those he came to save. There's a beautiful story in Matthew 14 about Jesus connecting with people. Now the context is actually a very sad one. Jesus has just been told that John the Baptist had been murdered by Herod. And as you know, the ministry of Jesus and that of John were very much interlinked. And so after hearing the news, we're told that Jesus went off by himself to a quiet place, perhaps to reflect, and certainly, I think, to talk to Father God about the whole situation. But he was soon interrupted because crowds heard that Jesus was there and they wanted to receive from Jesus. And so we're told he went to the crowd and he had compassion on them and he healed their sick. And then there's a lovely detail. It says this, when evening came. In other words, he'd spent time with them, connecting with them. That's what he came to do. And so for us, we're pondering healing. We're seeking to develop this ministry that God's entrusted to us. We're seeking to, if you like, water the seeds of this ministry that Jesus has given us. What does all this say to us as we look at the healing ministry? Well, first of all, I think it is a calling upon us to connect with people just as Jesus connected with people. And connecting with them, it's about being present with them in their situations, being right there with them. Again, there's a fascinating detail in one of the incredible stories about Jesus bringing, a stunning healing, raising Lazarus from the dead. It seems that when Jesus heard that Lazarus had died, he had some sort of inkling that something glorious was going to happen. And we read this. The sisters sent word to Jesus, Lord, the one you love is ill. And when he heard about it, Jesus said, this illness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it. And so when he stands before the tomb of Lazarus, I think he knows he's about to see something glorious happening. What does he do? Well, we read, he weeps. Why? Well, again, we're not told. But I wonder if it was to do with he was connecting with that situation right there. He was connecting with the grief of the people around him. He was connecting with his own feelings. He was connecting with, I think, how the authorities were going to take this miracle and what they would do with it. He connected. And similarly, I think we are called to connect with those with whom we minister. We are sent just in the same way as the Father sent Jesus. Not to be, dispensers of God's power from on high, walking past people and just zapping them with God's power, but as people who will connect with those to whom they are sent. So how do we connect? Well, I think our fear is often that it means spending hours and hours with people, more time than we probably think we have. And certainly listening to people's stories is a great way of connecting with them, but it's more than just being quiet and letting them speak. It's also, I think, about letting people know that they have been heard, letting them feel there has been a connection between us and them. And it doesn't necessarily mean we have to spend hours listening to people. Sometimes it might be the case. But sometimes it's about just hearing the odd phrase they say and maybe just feeding back to them something of what they've said to us. And when we do that, I think we demonstrate we've been hearing their words. There's a great example of this, actually, I think, in the life of Jesus. In Mark chapter 1, we read this. A man with leprosy came to him and begged him on his knees, "If you are willing, you can make me clean." Now, Jesus was indignant, and he reached out his hand and he touched the man. "I am willing," he said. "Be clean." And he seems to pick up on that very word, willing. He seems to sense that was a kind of issue, I think, for the man that was suffering with leprosy. Perhaps he was thinking, does God really want to heal me? Is God really willing to heal me? And so Jesus picks up that word willing and repeats it back and demonstrates that he's heard him. And an incredible miracle flows from him. Second, I think we connect with people when we seek to catch some of the emotion behind what they're saying. It's not just about hearing their words, it's catching their feelings. What do folk look like when they're speaking? What's their body language like? Do they look angry? Do they look tense? And to reflect that back with people is again a sign that you're connecting with them. When you spoke that, you look very tearful. When you said those words, you look very angry. It helps people know you're not just passively standing there. You're actually engaging and connecting with them. Now, what are some of the things that stop us connecting with people? Well, I want you just to think about some of the times where you've been with people recently and where you could have connected with them, but you either didn't or even you chose not to. Some of the common things might be, when we are trying to listen, but we really want to bring something to them. Maybe we feel we've got something to share with them. We might even feel it's a word from God we want to share with them, something we really feel will make a big difference to them. Whereas it's great actually to want to help people like that, there is a danger in it. The danger can be that we're too busy thinking of the thing we want to say that we're not actually listening to them. We're just looking for that opportunity to leap in and say something to them. Now, when someone wants us to connect, to listen, first and foremost, let's listen. There's always, plenty of time to bring what we might want to with them, but don't jump in, because they matter. It might be that we're frightened of connecting with people because of what it might cost us. We might genuinely not have the time to spend with that person at that time, at least as much time as they might want to take from us. It might be that others are wanting ministry, and we can't just give a full hour to that person at the time. Well, sometimes I think what I might have found helpful is that if someone is beginning to share at length, I want to say something to assure them that I really do care. I can see you've been through a lot. I can see what you've shared may just be the tip of the iceberg of what you've really been experiencing. What I'd like to do is spend a little time with you, giving you the space to bring these things directly to Jesus. Perhaps spend a bit of time then leading them in what we call encounter prayer, where they can engage with God themselves. We're still showing we care. We're still actually connecting with them and letting them connect with God, but it may not be the best way of spending that time to listen to all of their life story. Another thing might be that we're distracted. We all have countless things going through our minds at any one time. And we might have just had another conversation with somebody and it's still playing on our minds. We might have other anxieties that are weighing upon us. Sometimes we just, I think, have to consciously acknowledge that we have these things in our minds and we have to consciously park them on one side so we can give our full attention to the person in front of us. There's plenty of time to pick these things up later and carry on stewing with them if we want to. But we have to consciously let them go so we can engage with this person who is there with us. Now, there are probably tons of other things that get in the way as well. But I think what it comes down to is this. If you're in a situation with somebody, and if you find it's actually hard to connect, or it's hard to listen, simply ask the question of yourself, why? What is it going on in me at the moment that's making it quite hard for you to engage with that person? And once you can acknowledge it, once you can name it, then I think we can do something about it. Now, as we've said, it's quite hard to make out a case that Jesus spent hours and hours listening to people, in the way that we traditionally think of listening, but actually entering into a situation and reading what's going on is at the heart of the very nature of God. Jesus revealed God as our Father, a Father who gave everything he had for that relationship to be restored with us. Jesus is one who entered into our world, living as one of us, experiencing life as one of us. So he could really look us in the eye when he says, "Come to me." And the Holy Spirit dwells within us, abiding, whispering, listening to our hearts. You see, connecting with us is something that God does very naturally. And connecting with others is something that we should do equally naturally as well. Now, I hope you found that helpful. And I think I can probably guarantee that you'll have lots of opportunities to practice connecting with others. It may well be those with whom you are in lockdown. It may be others with whom you have contact by phone. I do wonder if in these days of slightly fewer casual conversations, the conversations we do have probably matter even more. It's up to us what we do with the opportunities. Can we follow that invitation laid out in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 1, where we're invited to be imitators of God, to be with others as God is with us. That's our challenge. Now bless you all at this time and take care.